Welcome back, fellow seekers of the shadows. You've tuned into Stories of Crime, the place where the veil between the mundane and the monstrous is brutally ripped away. Tonight, we aren't just reading a report. We are opening a file, marked top priority, tucked away in the darkest corner of the archives. We're going to step across that chalk line and peer into the void, where human nature meets its most terrifying extremes. In this hour, the street lights flicker, the shadows deepen, and the truth is often far more chilling than any fiction you could invent. Forget the heroes. Tonight, we focus on the villains. On the motives that curdle the blood, and the consequences that echo forever. So, dim the lights. Lock your doors. Take a deep, steadying breath, because once the story begins, there's no turning back. This is Stories of Crime. And the case we're unfolding tonight is Book, The Shadow over London. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, consider this your personal invitation to step into a different kind of story, a journey into the shadows of literary history, into a world that, for all its outward grandeur, was deeply, profoundly riddled with unsettling anxieties. Today, we're not just discussing a book, we're attempting to peel back the dense, often murky layers surrounding an icon, a character so profoundly potent and controversial that his very name alone conjures an entire era of fear, fascination, and, let's be honest, deeply problematic stereotypes. We're talking about Sax Rohmer's seminal, and in many ways, infamous, The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. Now, before we plunge headfirst into the labyrinthine plots, the diabolical devices, and the ethical quagmires this character represents, I want to do something crucial. I want to transport you. I want you to truly feel the very atmosphere, the very texture of the world this villain, this archetypal mastermind, emerged from. So, I invite you, for just a few moments, to let your mind drift with me, to engage your senses, and imagine. Imagine it's 1913. The sprawling, magnificent metropolis of London. But not the vibrant, bustling, sun-dappled London you might conjure from classic films or picture books. No. This is a city draped, choked even, in a perpetual shroud. It's not just a passing shower or a light morning mist. This is the authentic London fog, a malevolent, living entity. A thick, ochre-colored miasma that doesn't just obscure, it smothers. It presses down on the grand Victorian architecture, turning familiar landmarks into ghostly silhouettes. It swallows the eager glow of the gaslight lanterns whole, transforming their usually cheerful illumination into weak, struggling halos that barely push back the encroaching gray. Can you feel it? The cold, the relentless, seeping damp that penetrates not just your clothes, but seems to worm its way right into your very bones, leaving a metallic, almost earthy taste on your tongue. The air is heavy, laden with the smell of coal smoke, damp wool, and something indefinably industrial, yet ancient. The world shrinks, dramatically, to the immediate few feet around you. Faces emerge from the swirling obscurity like specters, their features momentarily sharp, only to dissolve back into the impenetrable gray, leaving behind a fleeting impression of unease. The familiar soundtrack of the city, the boisterous shouts of street vendors, the incessant chatter of crowds, the insistent clatter of hansom cabs, all of it is muted, absorbed by the suffocating dampness. What remains is a low, persistent, almost primal hum of a colossal city trying desperately to breathe under a wet, heavy blanket. Every alleyway seems darker, every shadow deeper, every distant cough more unsettling, echoing in the confined space. This is a London where even the most rational mind might start to believe in phantoms, in unseen forces, simply because so much of reality is hidden, just beyond the edge of perception. It's the London of Sherlock Holmes, yes, but twisted, infused with a new, more profound, and sinister darkness that feels alien, utterly foreign. It's a city ripe for secrets, for things lurking, for fears to finally take corporeal, terrifying form. This isn't merely about painting a picturesque scene for a story, it's about delving into the very psychological landscape of an entire generation, a specific cultural moment. At the precipice of the 20th century, the mighty British Empire, for all its outward display of power and imperial confidence, was deeply, profoundly riddled with anxieties. Industrialization had brought unprecedented wealth and technological marvels, certainly, but it also birthed immense poverty, stark social stratification, simmering unrest, and a pervasive sense of societal disconnection. The world was hurtling forward at a dizzying, often disorienting pace, bringing with it not just new technologies and groundbreaking ideas, but, crucially, new perceived threats from every single corner. Introduction: the physician's perspective. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Or, if this is your first time joining us, a very special welcome indeed. I'm so glad you're here. For those of you who've been on this journey with me before, you know I love diving deep into stories that resonate, that challenge, and sometimes, stories that simply transport us to another time and place. Today, we're doing all three, and we're embarking on something truly insidious. We're about to open the cover on a classic of pulp fiction, a story that spawned an entire genre, and introduced one of the most infamous villains in literary history, Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. Now, if you've heard the name, you probably have an image already formed, a shadowy figure, brilliant, malevolent, and perhaps, a little bit, problematic by today's standards. And we're absolutely going to tackle all of that. But before we get to the good doctor himself, we need to meet the man who first introduced him to the world, the one who bore witness to his terrifying genius, Dr. Petrie. You see, this isn't just another tale told by an omniscient narrator. Oh no. From the very first page, we are thrown into the swirling chaos and mystery through the eyes, and indeed, the very soul, of Dr. Petrie. He's our guide, our anchor, and frankly, the reason this whole wild ride feels as terrifyingly real as it does. Think of him not just as a sidekick, or a mere chronicler of events, but as the beating heart of this narrative. He's not the intrepid adventurer, not the fearless detective. That role belongs to the indomitable Nayland Smith, a man whose sheer force of will often borders on the obsessive. No, Petrie is a man of science, a physician, grounded in the measurable and the observable. He's meticulous, thoughtful, and initially, utterly unprepared for the world he's about to be dragged into. Their relationship, Petrie's with Nayland Smith, is key. It's forged in the crucible of escalating terror. Smith, a former commissioner from Burma, is the man with the intel, the warnings, the unshakable conviction that something truly monstrous is stirring in the underbelly of London. Petrie, on the other hand, is a London doctor, living a respectable, predictable life, until one fateful night, a knock on his door brings Smith, and with him, a torrent of unbelievable events. Petrie becomes Smith's confidant, his medical expert, and, crucially, the man tasked with documenting the unimaginable. He's our everyman, swept up in something far grander and more terrifying than he could ever have conceived. We see the exotic, the grotesque, the horrifying, and the utterly baffling through his very human reactions, his fear, his fascination, his moral qualms. And it's precisely these moral qualms that elevate Dr. Petrie far beyond the role of a simple sidekick. He's our moral compass in a world that rapidly descends into ethical ambiguity. As a physician, his primary directive is to heal, to preserve life, to alleviate suffering. But he finds himself entangled in a struggle where violence is frequent, lives are cheap, and the line between right and wrong becomes increasingly blurred. He's constantly grappling with the implications of their pursuit, the often brutal methods employed by Nayland Smith, and the sheer, unadulterated evil they confront. When Petrie describes a scene, it's not just a detached recounting of facts. It's infused with his medical understanding, the precise nature of a poison, the physiological effects of terror, the lingering traces of a struggle. But more than that, it's infused with his humanity. He feels the pain of the victims, questions the necessity of the violence, and struggles with the ethical dilemmas that arise when you're fighting a truly insidious enemy. He's the one who often asks, are we becoming like them in our fight against them? He's the one who, in his quiet moments of reflection, brings a deeply human perspective to the unfolding horror. Smith might be the driving engine, but Petrie is the conscience, the narrator who allows us to process the impossible. Chapter 1, A Midnight Visitor. Alright, welcome back to the channel, my fellow literary adventurers. Today, we're diving headfirst into a classic that, honestly, still sends shivers down my spine, Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. And let me tell you, This isn't your grandma's cozy mystery. This is high-octane, pulse-pounding, imperial-era paranoia wrapped in a deliciously thrilling package. Now, for those of you who might be new to this, or perhaps just revisiting an old friend, we're going to start exactly where Romer wants us to, in the quiet, unassuming world of Dr. Petrie. So, settle in, maybe grab a cup of tea, but don't get too comfortable, because things are about to get wild. Chapter 1, A Midnight Visitor. Imagine this, if you will, a chilly London evening, sometime around the turn of the 20th century. The gas lamps are flickering, casting long, dancing shadows on the cobblestone streets. Dr. Petrie, our narrator and unwitting protagonist, is doing what any respectable, somewhat staid, medical professional would be doing. He's probably tucked away in his study, perhaps enjoying a good book, or maybe reviewing some notes from his day, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating his methodical work. Life for Dr. Petrie is, well, orderly. It's predictable. It's the kind of quiet, dignified existence that many of us, frankly, sometimes yearn for, especially in our hyper-connected, often chaotic modern world. He's a bachelor, living a perfectly respectable, if slightly solitary, life. He's got his routine, his comforts. Nothing, absolutely nothing, in his comfortable London existence would suggest the earth-shattering events about to land squarely on his doorstep. Pause, and then, it happens. It's midnight. That magical, often eerie hour when the world feels different, doesn't it? When the mundane slips away and the extraordinary seems just a little bit closer. A sudden, violent pounding shatters the stillness of Petrie's sanctuary. Not a polite knock, mind you. Not the kind of tap 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 you'd expect from a delivery or a late-night caller. No, this is an insistent, almost desperate, urgent hammering. It's the kind of sound that jolts you out of your skin, right? Makes your heart leap into your throat. Petrie, naturally, is startled. Who on earth could it be at this hour? A medical emergency? A dire summons? He rushes to the door, probably a bit disoriented, a flicker of irritation mixed with concern. And when he opens it, what he finds isn't just a visitor, it's a tornado in human form. Standing there, on his very proper London doorstep, is none other than Nayland Smith. Now, if you know anything about the world of Fu Manchu, you know Nayland Smith is a name synonymous with relentless pursuit and unwavering resolve. But the Nayland Smith who bursts into Petrie's quiet life that night isn't the composed, formidable figure you might expect. No, this Smith is a wreck. His clothes are rumpled, covered in the dust and grime of an epic journey. His face is pale, drawn, etched with exhaustion and, more alarmingly, a desperate, almost wild glint in his eyes. He looks like a man who has been running not just from something, but for something, with the very fate of the world hanging in the balance. He practically shoves his way past Petrie, not a word of greeting, just a raw, palpable urgency radiating from him. Intense tone. Smith has just arrived from Burma. Think about that for a second. Burma. In that era, that wasn't a quick hop across the channel. That was a serious, arduous, incredibly long journey. The fact that he's here, now, without warning, in such a state, speaks volumes before he even utters a single coherent sentence. He hasn't just traveled across continents, he's arrived like a harbinger of doom, carrying the stench of danger and the shadow of the unknown. Petrie's perfectly ordered life is, in that instant, irrevocably breached. The mundane has been violently elbowed aside by the utterly extraordinary. Pause for effect. Smith doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He barely even acknowledges Petrie's presence beyond physically vain. Chapter 2, The Zayed Kiss. Alright, welcome back, my fellow adventurers into the shadows. If you're just joining us, you've stumbled into a deep dive on one of literature's most enduring, and frankly, terrifying villains, the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. In our last chapter, we set the stage, introduced the man himself, and the looming threat he represented to the British Empire, and indeed, to Western civilization. We met our stalwart protagonists, Nayland Smith, and Dr. Petrie, who are about to have their very understanding of crime, of danger, and of the human capacity for evil utterly redefined. Today, we're plunging headfirst into Chapter 2, The Zayed Kiss. And trust me when I say, this chapter isn't just a scene setter, it's a gut punch. It's the moment where the seemingly impossible becomes chillingly real, where the exotic truly intertwines with the lethal, and where we get our very first taste, a venomous one, of Dr. Fu Manchu's unique brand of terror. Our goal today is to investigate this first impossible murder, a killing so meticulously planned and so utterly foreign that it beggars belief. The year is 1913. London is bustling, confident, perhaps a little smug in its imperial might. But beneath that veneer, a sinister current is beginning to flow. Dr. Petrie, our narrator, is called away from a quiet evening, pulled into the orbit of his friend, Inspector Nayland Smith, a man now consumed by a desperate hunt. And the hunt, it turns out, leads them to a quiet house in Avenue Road, St. John's Wood, the residence of none other than Sir Crichton Davidge. Now, who was Sir Crichton? He was a luminary, a respected member of the scientific community, particularly in the realm of Oriental languages and customs. A man of intellect, a man of influence. The very kind of individual, you quickly realize, that Fu Manchu would view as either an asset to be co-opted or an obstacle to be removed. In this case, it was the latter. When Smith and Petrie arrive, the atmosphere is already thick with a palpable dread. The police are bewildered. This isn't your everyday street mugging or domestic dispute. This is something profoundly other. The crime scene is, on the surface, utterly baffling. Sir Crichton is found dead in his study. The room is locked from the inside. There's no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no disturbed furniture that would suggest a struggle. It's a classic locked room mystery, but one infused with an additional, deeply unsettling layer of horror. Dr. Petrie, as a medical man, approaches the body. Sir Crichton is slumped in his chair, his face contorted in an expression of sheer terror. His eyes are wide, glassy, fixed on some unseen horror in his final moments. And then, Petrie notices it. The defining, horrifying clue that elevates this from a mere mystery to a macabre masterpiece of murder. On Sir Crichton's neck, just below the ear, is a small, inflamed mark. A vivid red, almost purplish, and slightly swollen. It's not a bullet wound, not a knife wound. It's something organic. Something venomous. This, my friends, is where Sax Rohmer truly earns the insidious in his title. He doesn't just present a death, he presents a method so outlandish, yet so clinically precise, that it chills you to the bone. Because the weapon, it's quickly deduced, is not a firearm or a blade. It's a creature. A specific, terrifying creature, the red centipede. Scolopendra gigantea. Imagine it. A centipede. Not your garden variety bug, mind you. We're talking about a beast that can grow to truly alarming lengths, a foot or more. These aren't delicate, skittering insects, they are formidable, segmented predators, built for hunting. They are equipped with a pair of highly specialized appendages called forcipules, located just behind their heads. These aren't pincers for crushing, these are fangs, hollow and sharp, connected to venom glands. When a centipede attacks, those forcipules inject a potent neurotoxin. And the venom of Scolopendra? It's nasty. Extremely painful, causing intense burning, swelling, and localized tissue necrosis. In larger Chapter 3, The Perfume of Death. All right, my fellow literary adventurers, welcome back. I hope you're settled in, maybe with a cup of your favorite tea, or perhaps something a little stronger to steel your nerves, because in this chapter, we're not just moving forward with the plot, we're stepping into the very atmosphere of menace that surrounds Dr. Fu Manchu. Last time, we left Nayland Smith and Dr. Petrie firmly entrenched in their investigation, grappling with the unsettling reality of a criminal mastermind unlike any they, or frankly, we have ever encountered. We saw the shadows beginning to lengthen, the stakes climbing higher. But if the previous chapters introduced us to the idea of Fu Manchu, this one, Chapter 3, The Perfume of Death, is where we truly begin to feel him. It's where Sax Rohmer, with a master stroke of sensory writing, transforms a villain from a mere concept into a visceral, almost tangible dread. You know, when we think of a terrifying antagonist, our minds often jump to visual cues, a menacing glare, a scar, a towering stature. But Fu Manchu operates on a much more insidious, primal level. He bypasses the eyes and goes straight for the nose, then the mind, twisting something inherently pleasant into an instrument of terror. And that, my friends, brings us directly to the first, and perhaps most haunting, element of his presence, the perfume. It's not just any smell, it's a recurring, almost spectral motif throughout the narrative. Romer describes it with such evocative precision that you can almost smell it seeping from the pages. It's sickly sweet, cloying, heavy, and exotic. It's a scent that doesn't quite belong, a fragrance that whispers of hidden dangers and unknown origins. Imagine, for a moment, walking into a room, or perhaps a dimly lit alley, and instead of the usual city grime or the scent of rain, you're hit by this powerful, almost suffocating sweetness. It's not the delicate floral note of a gardenia, nor the crisp, clean tang of citrus. No, this is something deeper, more ancient, perhaps even artificial in its intensity. It's the kind of sweetness that, instead of inviting, repels. It almost makes your teeth ache, your head swim. It's a scent that promises decadence but delivers decay. Romer uses this brilliant device to perfection. The perfume becomes Fu Manchu's signature, his calling card, but one dipped in poison. It's often the first indication that he is near, or that he has been near. It's a sensory precursor to peril. Before you see a shadow move, before you hear a creak, before an attack is launched, there's that scent, a phantom presence that raises the hairs on the back of your neck. It's the smell of anticipation, of lurking evil, a fragrant warning siren. For me, as a reader, this motif is utterly brilliant. It's unique. How many villains do you know who are primarily identified by their smell? It imbues Fu Manchu with an almost supernatural quality. He's not just a man, he's an atmospheric condition. He contaminates the very air around him. And the fact that it's perfume, something typically associated with beauty, allure, or even sanctity, being twisted into an omen of death? That's just chef's kiss level writing. It highlights the insidious nature of the man himself, taking something benign and corrupting it. It tells you that this isn't a villain who confronts you head on, he infiltrates, he seduces, he poisons. And this brings us directly to a chilling incident, a particularly close call that truly hammers home the danger encapsulated in that sickly sweet aroma. It involves none other than our good Dr. Petrie. The setting is often tense, often in the dead of night, or in some secluded, shadowed locale. Petrie, ever the rational man of science, finds himself increasingly disoriented. The air grows heavy, thick with that pervasive, exotic perfume. At first, it's a discomfort, a mild nausea, a feeling of being unwell. But then, as the concentration of the scent intensifies, the effects become undeniably sinister. He describes a profound sense of dizziness, a blurry. Chapter 4, Enter Karamena. Alright, everyone, settle in. Grab your favorite mug, lean back, and let's dive deeper into the labyrinthine world of the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. We've been hurtling through the dimly lit streets of London, through secret passages and hidden laboratories, always a step behind the enigmatic and utterly malevolent Dr. Fu Manchu. Nayland Smith, with his bulldog tenacity, and Dr. Petrie, our more contemplative, though equally brave, narrator, have been our guides through a landscape of poison darts, ancient rituals, and cunning traps. The air has been thick with anticipation, with the scent of opium and danger, and the constant threat of a global catastrophe orchestrated by this yellow peril mastermind. And just when you think you've grasped the contours of this shadowy, dangerous world, Sax Romer, with a master stroke, throws a curveball that not only complicates the narrative but injects a potent dose of humanity and moral ambiguity into what could otherwise be a straightforward pulp adventure. He introduces a character who will utterly redefine what we think we know about good and evil, victim and perpetrator, and whose very presence will send ripples through Petrie's steadfast sense of duty and his surprisingly vulnerable heart. Welcome to Chapter 4, Enter Karamena. And if you've read The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, you know that name reverberates with a peculiar, almost haunting blend of beauty, tragedy, and heart-stopping danger. For me, this is where the story truly transcends a simple chase sequence and delves into something far more intricate, something that still sparks debate and fascination today, inviting us to consider the nuances of control, coercion, and the indomitable human spirit. It's where the personal stakes become incredibly, painfully real for Petrie, making his journey far more than just an intellectual pursuit of justice. Hashtag the first meeting, beauty in the lair of the beast. So, let's set the scene for this pivotal encounter. Petrie, our good doctor, finds himself, yet again, in a precarious and typically dire situation. It's almost become his unfortunate specialty, hasn't it? He's the one stumbling into the most direct threats, frequently ambushed, snatched, or drugged, only to awaken in some unfamiliar, terrifying locale. And it's in one such instance, deep within the labyrinthine underbelly of Fu Manchu's operations, a hidden chamber, perhaps, or a secret prison cell amidst strange, exotic artifacts, the faint, cloying smell of incense, and the ever-present threat of a hideous, agonizing death, that he first sees her. And what a vision she is! Romer doesn't hold back in his descriptions, painting Karamena with strokes of breathtaking, almost otherworldly beauty. She is presented as the embodiment of an oriental dream, a product of her era's romanticized and often problematic view of the East, yes, but undeniably captivating. Her face is described as a perfect oval, her skin like pale ivory, her lips the color of ripe pomegranates. But it's her eyes that truly seize Petrie, dark pools, luminous, capable of expressing both profound sadness and startling intelligence, framed by long, dark lashes. Her hair, like midnight, often falls around her, creating an aura of mystery and allure. She is young, perhaps 16 or 17, a delicate, almost ethereal figure, and her attire, often described as flowing silks or gossamer garments, only heightens her exotic appeal to Petrie's Edwardian sensibilities. She doesn't burst in, she often appears, almost as a silent apparition. Sometimes she's tending to an injured Petrie, her small, delicate hands moving with a surprising efficiency, applying salves or offering water. At other times, she's observing him from a distance, her gaze lingering with an unreadable expression. Sometimes she's merely present when Fu Manchu himself makes one of his grand, terrifying pronouncements. But here's the crucial, immediate kicker: she's not just a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful woman who is there, in the beating heart of the enemy's lair, Undine. Chapter 5, The Call of Shiva. Intro music fades in and out gracefully, perhaps with an exotic, slightly unsettling Eastern motif. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with me, diving deeper into the shadowy world of the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. Last time, we left our brave protagonists, Dr. Petrie and Sir Dennis Nayland Smith, grappling with the chilling realization that Fu Manchu wasn't just a criminal mastermind, he was something far more ancient, more cunning, and terrifyingly well-connected. They knew he was a threat, a phantom, but they were about to discover the sheer, brutal physicality of his reach. Today, we peel back another layer of this sinister onion, venturing into a chapter I've titled, The Call of Shiva. And believe me, when I say Call of Shiva, I don't mean a philosophical discussion over tea. I'm talking about the dark, destructive aspect of the Hindu deity, invoked not in temples, but through terror and bloodshed on the quiet, respectable streets of London. This is where Sax Rohmer truly starts to weave the exotic tapestry of Eastern mysticism and ancient, brutal practices directly into the heart of the British Empire, creating a cocktail of fear that was utterly unprecedented for its time. #### The terrifying legacy, thugs, dacoits, and the shadow of Kali. Now, to truly understand the horror our heroes are about to face, we need to take a detour, a journey back to colonial India, and confront two names that, for generations of British administrators and soldiers, represented the very abyss of human depravity and superstition, the thugs and the dacoits. Rohmer doesn't just name-drop these groups, he weaponizes their historical legacy. Let's start with the thugs, a name that has, ironically, entered our English lexicon as a synonym for a violent ruffian, but whose original meaning is far more chilling. The thugs were not merely common highwaymen. No, they were something far more insidious. They were members of a secret, ancient cult, utterly devoted to Kali, the Hindu goddess of death and destruction, often associated with Shiva. For centuries, these shadowy figures roamed the highways and byways of India, preying on unsuspecting travelers. Their method was horrifyingly simple and brutally effective: ritualistic murder by strangulation, using a silken scarf or cloth known as a rumal. Imagine, if you will, traveling along a dusty road, perhaps joining a seemingly friendly group of fellow travelers for safety. You'd share food, stories, build camaraderie. Then, at an opportune moment, often at night, when you were resting, the rumal would descend. Swift, silent, deadly. The victim was then robbed, and their body disposed of, often with a ceremonial burial. Their motive wasn't just plunder, though that was a part of it, it was religious devotion. Each murder was an offering to Kali, believed to secure prosperity and divine favor. What made the thugs so terrifying was their utter stealth and their ability to blend in. They were masters of disguise, their network vast and hidden, their activities shrouded in superstition and fear. It took the dedicated efforts of British administrators like William Henry Sleeman in the 1830s to systematically dismantle this ancient network, a campaign that unveiled a staggering history of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of ritualistic murders over centuries. The thugs, in their purest form, were eventually suppressed, but their legend, their aura of quiet, cultish terror, persisted. Then we have the dacoits. While often conflated with thugs, dacoits were a distinct, though equally fearsome, phenomenon. Dacoity, in essence, simply means banditry or gang robbery. Dacoit gangs were large, organized bands of armed robbers, typically operating in rural or remote areas, often from jungles or inaccessible ravines. They, too, were violent, ruthless, and highly effective. Unlike the thugs' ritualistic, religiously motivated strangulation, dacoits were more straightforward brigands, though they might also invoke deities or local superstitions to intimidate their six. Chapter 6, The Green Mist. Alright, gather round, folks, and let's dive back into the swirling, shadowy world of Dr. Fu Manchu. Welcome to Chapter 6 of our journey, a segment I've titled, rather ominously, The Green Mist. Now, if you've been with us since the beginning, you know that Sax Rohmer has been steadily ratcheting up the tension, introducing us to a villain unlike any other. But in this particular chapter, we hit a turning point, a moment where the narrative truly shifts. We're about to venture from a thrilling, albeit grounded, detective story into something far more ethereal, more insidious, more akin to supernatural horror. Imagine this: you're Nayland Smith, or Dr. Petrie. You've just spent a day grappling with the chilling reality of the sci-fi, with assassins lurking in every shadow, strange poisons, and the very real threat of global conspiracy. You've had a narrow escape, your nerves are frayed, and all you want is the safety of your own home, your own sanctuary. And for a moment, you get it. The flickering gaslights, the comfortable armchair, the quiet hum of London outside your window. It's a brief respite, a moment of deceptive calm before the storm. You might even allow yourself a small, weary sigh of relief. You think you're safe. You feel safe. And then, it begins. Romer, with his masterful hand, introduces us to one of the most iconic and terrifying elements of the Fu Manchu mythos, a silent, creeping terror that truly sets the stage for the Doctor's more fantastical exploits. He describes it as a mist, yes, but not just any mist. This isn't the gentle, romantic fog of London that Dickens might conjure. Oh no. This is something far more sinister. It's green. Think about that for a moment. Green. Not the earthy, life-giving green of a forest, nor the vibrant green of spring leaves. This is an unnatural green, perhaps like the verdigris on old copper, or the sickly hue of stagnant water under a sickly moon. It begins subtly, seeping in through a slightly opened window, or perhaps even through the very cracks in the walls, as if the house itself is exhaling a putrid breath. It's thin at first, almost translucent, a mere suggestion of color in the lamplight. But it grows. It thickens. It swirls with an eerie, almost intelligent fluidity, coiling and uncoiling like a serpent seeking its prey. There's no sound. That's crucial. No creaking floorboards, no rattling windows, no forced entry. Just an unearthly silence, punctuated only by the protagonist's own ragged breaths, suddenly amplified in the thickening atmosphere. The air takes on a strange quality, perhaps a faint, metallic tang, or a cloying sweetness that is less perfume and more chloroform. Visibility diminishes rapidly. The familiar objects of the room begin to blur, to lose their sharp edges, to become indistinct shapes swallowed by the encroaching, viridian haze. It's disorienting, isolating. You can see your hand in front of your face, but beyond that, the world dissolves into an unsettling, undulating ocean of green. And it's in this suffocating, verdant shroud that the horror truly takes hold. This isn't just a smoke screen for a robbery or a clumsy attempt at a diversion. No, this mist is the weapon itself. It's the silent delivery system for Dr. Fu Manchu's insidious gas-based traps. Imagine the growing dread as Petrie or Smith tries to fight it, to understand it. They cough, they gasp, their lungs burn, but the air offers no solace, only more of the insidious green. Their muscles begin to weaken, their thoughts grow sluggish, their vision swims. The world recedes, replaced by a growing numb indifference, a surrender to the inevitable. And then, oblivion. The next thing they know, or rather, the next thing the survivors know, someone is gone. A kidnapping has occurred. And it wasn't a struggle, wasn't a fight. It was a silent, spectral snatch. The mist dissipates as mysteriously as it arrived, leaving behind only the lingering scent of something strange and a terrifying, yawning void where a person once stood. The room might even look untouched, save for the Chapter 7, The Fungi Cellars. Alright, my fellow adventurers into the dark corners of literature, settle in. We're about to descend. If you've been following along in our journey through Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, you know we've been slowly peeling back layers of a truly insidious plot. We've seen Dr. Fu Manchu's cunning, his exotic network of agents, and the ever-present threat he poses to the British Empire. But what we're about to delve into now, well, it's a different kind of horror. It's primal, biological, and it sticks with you long after you've closed the book. We're going into the fungi cellars. Our heroes, Sir Dennis Nayland Smith of Scotland Yard and Dr. Petrie, the ever-reliable chronicler of these terrifying events, have followed a trail, a whisper, a gut feeling that led them to a quiet, unassuming stretch of the Thames. Picture it, a late London evening, the fog, thick and oily, clinging to the grimy bricks of the waterfront. It's a shroud, muffling sound, distorting vision, making the familiar city feel alien and menacing. The air is heavy with the scent of coal smoke, damp earth, and the faint, briny tang of the river itself, a smell that hints at forgotten things lurking beneath the surface. They're looking at what appears to be just another in a row of anonymous Georgian houses, its brickwork stained by generations of industrial grime, its windows like vacant, unblinking eyes staring out at the murky waters. Nothing outwardly sinister, not to the casual observer. No flashing lights, no exotic guards, just a facade of utter normalcy that, in this context, feels more chilling than any overt threat. And yet, Smith, with his sharp, almost psychic perception for evil, knows. This is it. This quiet, decaying shell hides a heart of darkness. The tension is a living thing, tightening around their throats with every silent step on the cobblestones. Each shadow seems to writhe, each distant foghorn wail sounds like a mournful warning. The entry isn't a grand, cinematic assault, it's quiet, tense, almost furtive. They've discovered a hidden passage, a cleverly disguised entrance that blends seamlessly with the mundane architecture, perhaps a loose stone in the wall, a trick latch on a heavy, ancient door tucked away in a shadowed alley no one ever really sees. The kind of place you could walk past 1,000 times and never notice, a testament to Fu Manchu's genius for concealment. They slip inside, the heavy door thudding shut behind them with a finality that seems to sever them from the familiar world entirely. The sound is swallowed immediately by an oppressive, palpable darkness, plunging them into an unnatural silence. The air instantly changes, no longer the familiar London damp, but something else, something stagnant and cold, carrying a faint, earthy aroma that's off. A smell of unlife, perhaps. The initial passage is tight, uninviting, a narrow, winding tunnel barely wide enough for a man to pass comfortably. The walls are rough, damp, slick to the touch, and seem to press in on them, as if the very earth is trying to reclaim them. Their footsteps, soft as they are, echo unnervingly in the oppressive silence, punctuated only by the relentless drip, drip, drip of unseen water, a monotonous percussion that only heightens the tension. They light their lanterns, fragile beacons against the encroaching gloom, their light struggling, swallowed by the oppressive shadows that cling to every crevice. And then, the descent begins. Not a gentle slope, but a tortuous, narrow staircase, each uneven step leading them further down, deeper under the earth, deeper into an unknown, alien realm. It feels less like going into a mere basement and more like burrowing into the very foundations of hell itself, a deliberate severing from sanity and safety. With every step down, the temperature drops, and that strange, earthy smell intensifies. It's not the pleasant scent of loam or a healthy forest floor. No, this is the smell of things that grow in perpetual darkness, things that thrive on decay and silence, a sweetish, cloying odor. Chapter 8, The Wire Jacket. Welcome back, my friends, to our journey into the shadowy, exhilarating world of Dr. Fu Manchu. We've journeyed through the labyrinthine streets of London's Limehouse, navigated the chilling intricacies of the sci-fi, and felt the insidious creep of danger in every chapter so far. But if you thought we'd already plumbed the depths of our villains' cruelty, or truly understood the mettle of our heroes, prepare yourselves. Because now, we arrive at a chapter that truly defines the sheer, unadulterated evil of our villain, and simultaneously, the astonishing, almost superhuman endurance of our hero. We are at Chapter 8, The Wire Jacket. This isn't just another chapter, it's the crucible. It's where the stakes become agonizingly, undeniably real. It's the climax of physical and psychological torment, designed to shatter a man, body, and soul. And it's also where we witness the indomitable power of the human spirit pushed to its absolute breaking point, and beyond. This is where we see the essence of what makes Nayland Smith such an extraordinary adversary for the insidious Doctor. You remember where we left off, right? Nayland Smith and Dr. Petrie, ever on the heels of the insidious Doctor, had ventured into a particularly perilous situation. They were closing in, perhaps a little too confident, or perhaps simply victims of Fu Manchu's unparalleled cunning and his uncanny ability to anticipate their every move. The air was thick with the scent of treachery, and they were, unbeknownst to them, walking right into a meticulously laid trap. It happened with the swift, silent efficiency that only Fu Manchu's vast network could orchestrate. One moment, our heroes were navigating the dimly lit, labyrinthine passages beneath Limehouse, a district brimming with secrets, shadows, and unspeakable dangers. The next, they were utterly ensnared. There was no grand confrontation, no dramatic shootout, no climactic struggle against overwhelming odds. Just a sudden, overwhelming surge of silent, deadly figures materializing from the gloom. Think of it like a spider's web, almost invisible until you're tangled beyond escape, your struggles only tightening the silken bonds. One moment you're an observer in the game, the next you're irrevocably the prey. Dr. Petrie, bless his perpetually beleaguered medical heart, always provided us with the agonizing details of their capture. He recounted the rush of dark forms, the sudden application of chloroform-soaked cloths, the world blurring, spinning, then collapsing into an abyss of unconsciousness. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? To be so utterly helpless, your fate sealed by a sudden, chemical-induced darkness, your agency stolen in an instant. For Nayland Smith, a man of action, of iron will, this passive capture must have been a particular torment even before the physical pain began. The indignity of being caught unawares, rendered vulnerable, like a common criminal. When they awoke, the world had dramatically shifted. The grime and swirling mystery of Limehouse were replaced by the cold, calculated elegance of Fu Manchu's inner sanctum. A place of exotic artifacts that hinted at ancient, forbidden knowledge, chilling surgical instruments that gleamed with sterile menace, and, of course, the ever-present, chilling presence of the doctor himself. Fu Manchu, described always with that unsettling serenity, those luminous green eyes that seemed to pierce one's very soul, observing his captives with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying specimens in a laboratory. He didn't gloat, not in the vulgar sense that lesser villains might. His was a far more refined, far more terrifying form of triumph. He was there to extract information, yes, the whereabouts of his enemies, the secrets of their counterplans. But more importantly, far more importantly, he was there to break Nayland Smith. To dismantle the man who had become his most persistent, most formidable adversary. To prove, not just to Smith but to himself, that even the strongest will could be shattered. Imagine the scene, Petrie, Dessau. Chapter 9, The Six Gates. All right, my fellow travelers into the eerie and exotic world of early 20th century pulp fiction, welcome back to the channel. If you've been with us on this journey through the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, you'll remember the nail-biting cliffhanger we left off on. Our intrepid heroes, Nayland Smith and Dr. Petrie, found themselves in the most precarious of predicaments, captured, disarmed, and dragged into the very heart of the enemy's domain, the secretive, sprawling lair of the infamous Dr. Fu Manchu. It was a moment designed to make your blood run cold, a classic damsel in distress scenario, only with two very capable, albeit now helpless, gentlemen in distress. And it's in this chapter, Chapter 9, provocatively titled The Six Gates, that the true, terrifying genius of our primary antagonist is laid bare, not just through his grand, nefarious schemes for world domination, but through the chilling, intricate architecture of his personal fortress. This isn't just a hideout, it's a meticulously engineered ecosystem of terror, a testament to Fu Manchu's boundless resources and his profoundly disturbing intellect. Today, we're going to dive headfirst into this labyrinth. We'll meticulously map out the defensive mechanisms of this villain's ingenious hideout, recount a truly daring escape attempt that relies on the mysterious Caramena's crucial intervention, And then, perhaps most fascinatingly, we'll dissect a subtle but profoundly significant shift in the power dynamics between our two protagonists as Dr. Petrie rises to an unexpected challenge, saving none other than Sir Dennis Nayland Smith himself. So, settle in, perhaps grab a warm cup of something, because we're about to explore the very definition of insidious design. Now, let's begin by truly immersing ourselves in the experience of being a captive within Fu Manchu's domain. Imagine, if you will, the sheer disorientation. You're blindfolded, your senses assaulted by a cacophony of muffled sounds, the damp, earthy smell of ancient stone, and the unsettling sensation of being led through passages that twist and turn, ascend and descend, robbing you of any spatial awareness. Finally, you're thrust into an oppressive, absolute darkness. This isn't just a prison cell, it's a psychological weapon, designed to strip away your resolve before any physical torment even begins. Sax Rohmer, with his masterful strokes, doesn't just describe a place, he evokes a feeling, a pervasive sense of dread and helplessness. The six gates are not, as I mentioned, literal, colossal iron doors, though plenty of sturdy barriers exist within this place. Instead, they represent layers of increasingly lethal defense, a conceptual framework for the intricate network of challenges and traps that anyone attempting to escape, or even approach Fu Manchu, must navigate. Picture them as a series of diabolical trials, each engineered with a specific, sinister purpose. First and foremost is the sensory deprivation and disorientation. Fu Manchu understands that a weakened mind is as vulnerable as a restrained body. The passages are designed to confuse, to make escape seem utterly impossible. Echoing sounds, sudden drops in temperature, unseen currents of air, all contribute to a feeling of being utterly lost, a rat in a maze, amplifying the inherent terror. This psychological assault is a signature of Fu Manchu's genius. He's a master of the mind, not just the body. Then, we encounter the more tangible, acutely dangerous gates. Rohmer hints at, and our imagination can fill in, environmental controls that are nothing short of fiendish. Consider ventilation systems capable of subtly, almost imperceptibly, filling chambers with noxious, debilitating gases. These aren't necessarily instantly fatal. No, Fu Manchu's methods are far more refined. They might be slow-acting neurotoxins that induce paralysis, hallucinogens that twist perception, or even agents that merely sap strength and will, leaving a prisoner too weak, too disoriented, to effectively plan or execute an escape. Imagine the subtle sway. Chapter 10, The House of Opium. Alright, welcome back, everyone. If you've been following along, you know we've been deep in the shadowy alleys of Edwardian London, chasing the elusive, brilliant, and utterly insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. We've seen him orchestrate assassinations, wield ancient poisons, and pretty much demonstrate a mastery of global villainy that would make any Bond villain blush. But in Chapter 10 of The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, titled The House of Opium, the stakes shift, and our heroes, Nayland Smith and Dr. Petrie, find themselves needing to descend into a different kind of underworld, one steeped in smoke, dreams, and despair. This chapter, for me, was a fascinating, if somewhat uncomfortable, exploration. Because it's not just about a chase, it's about peeling back another layer of Fu Manchu's operations, revealing how deeply embedded his tendrils are, not just in political intrigue, but in the very fabric of London's hidden vices. The goal here is simple, yet profoundly dangerous: to investigate the drug trade as a front for his sprawling, insidious organization. So, let's step into the haze. 1. Describing the atmosphere of the opium den in Limehouse. Picture this: London, early 20th century. Limehouse. A name that, even today, conjures images of fog-laden docks, gas-lit alleys, and a certain exotic, almost forbidden allure. And within this labyrinthine district lies the House of Opium. Romer's descriptions, I have to say, are incredibly vivid, bordering on the lurid, painting a scene that is both captivating and chilling. From the moment you, as a reader, are led into this place, your senses are assaulted. First, there's the smell. A heavy, sweet, cloying aroma, a mix of burning opium, stale tobacco, and something else, something distinctly foreign, perhaps incense, perhaps the lingering scent of bodies and forgotten dreams. It hangs in the air like a thick curtain, almost tangible, impossible to escape. It's the kind of smell that clings to your clothes, to your hair, and probably, to your very soul, long after you've left. It's the smell of decay and forgotten pleasure, an intoxicating, yet utterly repulsive, combination. Then, the sight. Dimly lit rooms, shrouded in that perpetual haze of smoke that seems to absorb all sound and light. Figures, some sprawled listlessly on worn divans, their bodies contorted into strange angles, others hunched over elaborate pipes, their movements slow and deliberate, almost ritualistic. Their faces are slackened by the drug, their eyes glazed, distant, lost in their own private reveries, their pupils often dilated, reflecting nothing but the dim light. You see pale, emaciated faces, the rich tapestry of forgotten lives unraveling before you. Men and women, young and old, from all walks of life, reduced to a common state of blissful oblivion. The light, often described as a sickly yellow or a flickering orange from some distant oil lamp or a gas jet struggling to pierce the gloom, barely penetrates, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to distort reality itself, turning familiar shapes into monstrous specters. Every corner holds a secret, every shadow a potential threat or a deeper tragedy. The sounds, or lack thereof, are equally impactful. It's not silent, no. There's a low, guttural hum of hushed conversations in a myriad of languages: Chinese, Malay, English spoken with foreign accents, a murmur that never quite rises above a whisper. You might hear the gentle gurgle of a water pipe, the occasional sigh of profound release or deep despair, the rustle of silk or coarse cloth as a body shifts. But it's a hushed world, far removed from the bustling chaos of London streets, from the hoot of a hansom cab or the clamor of a factory. A place where time seems to slow down, where the outside world recedes, leaving only the immediate, drug-induced sensation. It's portrayed as a place of escape, yes, but also a cage. A gilded cage, perhaps, but a cage nonetheless, where souls are bought cheap and dreams turn to ashes. And what struck me most, reading these passages, was how Romer manages to make the setting feel both undeniably real and utterly theatrical, a stage set for nefarious plots, yet tragically authentic in its depiction of human weakness and the exotic allure of the forbidden. 2. Exploring the social commentary on addiction in the early 20th century. This brings us to a crucial, and frankly, ethically complex, element of this chapter, the social commentary woven into Romer's depiction of opium addiction. It's important to remember the context of the early 20th century. Opium dens, while often sensationalized and exaggerated for dramatic effect, were a real, if hidden, part of London's underbelly, particularly in districts like Limehouse, which had significant immigrant populations. And the public perception of addiction, especially to Oriental drugs like opium, was a complex mix of intense fear, moral condemnation, and a pervasive sense of exotic danger often tinged with xenophobia. The Yellow Peril anxieties were at their height. The book, through the eyes of its protagonists, particularly Nayland Smith, often portrays addiction as a profound moral failing, a complete surrender of will, and a path to utter degradation. The addicts are depicted as lost souls, vacant-eyed shells of their former selves, easily manipulated and utterly exploited. This perspective, while perhaps harsh and lacking the nuanced understanding of addiction as a disease that we have today, was very much in line with the prevailing attitudes of the era. There was a strong, almost puritanical, sense that these drugs, especially opium, were not just physically harmful, but spiritually corrupting, eroding one's character and turning them into slaves. They represented a direct threat to the moral fabric of society, a pathway to societal decay, often explicitly linked to the perceived dangers of foreign influence and the breakdown of traditional British values. The imagery of the Oriental drug dealer preying on innocent Westerners was a powerful, and frequently exploited, trope. But Romer also, and this is where his narrative brilliance truly shines for Fu Manchu's character, highlights another, more sinister facet, addiction as a sophisticated tool. For Fu Manchu, these dens aren't just places of vice or mere commercial ventures, they are sophisticated recruiting grounds, clandestine meeting points, and invaluable intelligence hubs. They are places where secrets are whispered, where information is bought and sold for a dose, where desperate souls, stripped of their will and their worldly connections, can be coerced, blackmailed, or subtly manipulated into serving a greater, darker purpose. The addicts, in their profound vulnerability, become unwitting pawns in a much larger, global game of intrigue and terror. Their physical and moral degradation is not just a tragic consequence of their habit, it's a strategic asset for Fu Manchu's vast, insidious network, a ready-made army of compromised individuals. This duality is what makes the portrayal so interesting, albeit problematic from a modern ethical standpoint. On one hand, you have the sensationalism, the Victorian morality play unfolding against an exotic backdrop. On the other, a chillingly pragmatic view of human weakness being not just observed, but actively weaponized. It forces us to confront the deepest societal anxieties of the time, fears of foreign infiltration, moral decay, the dissolution of personal autonomy, and the ever-present danger lurking beneath the veneer of civilized society. The opium den, in this context, becomes a microcosm of those anxieties, a dark mirror reflecting back the shadows of London's soul and the very real xenophobia that often accompanied it. And frankly, it's a powerful reminder of how easily vulnerability can be exploited by those who truly understand how to pull the strings, making it a terrifyingly effective base of operations for a supervillain. 3. Narrating the disguise and infiltration mission. So, with this understanding of the landscape, both physical and moral, our heroes must act. Nayland Smith, ever the shrewd strategist, knows that brute force or official channels won't work here. They need intelligence, pure and unadulterated. They need to get inside. And this brings us to one of my favorite tropes in these pulpy adventures, the disguise and infiltration mission, fraught with classic early 20th century sensibilities. The plan, as always, is incredibly fraught with risk. Smith and Petrie, inseparable in their pursuit of Fu Manchu, decide to go undercover. This isn't just about slipping on a different coat, it's about transforming themselves, blending into a world utterly alien to their British sensibilities and social standing. They meticulously adopt the appearance of, well, frankly, they adopt the racial stereotypes of the time for foreigners or down-and-out individuals frequenting such establishments. They dress in worn, drab clothing, perhaps affect a different gait, a different posture, even attempting to mask their English accents with a vague, non-specific foreign affectation. The goal is to appear as inconspicuous as possible, as just another lost soul seeking oblivion in the haze, too insignificant to warrant a second glance. The tension during these scenes is palpable, almost suffocating. Every shadow, every lingering glance from a bleary-eyed addict or a watchful attendant, every quiet murmur of conversation holds the potential for their discovery. Smith, with his sharp instincts and keen observation skills, is constantly on edge, his senses hyper-alert. He's not just looking for overt clues, he's watching the reactions of others, listening intently to the snippets of conversation that drift through the smoke, trying to discern who truly belongs, who is genuinely lost, and who might be an operative of the insidious doctor, perhaps even observing them. Petrie, often the more anxious and less seasoned of the two, feels the oppressive weight of the deception, the vulnerability of their position in this den of vice and despair. He's acutely aware that one wrong move, one misplaced word, one moment of recognition, and their mission, and possibly their lives, could be forfeit to Fu Manchu's silent agents. They move silently through the reeking corridors, past the supine, skeletal forms of the addicts, their senses overwhelmed by the cloying air and the tragic sights, their resolve tested by the sheer misery around them. They're searching for something specific, not just where the opium comes from, or who the petty dealers are, but how this trade connects to Fu Manchu's larger, more intricate scheme. Is it a distribution hub for his chemical poisons or exotic weapons? A clandestine meeting point for his secret society? A place where information is exchanged, codes broken, orders secretly given to his vast network of spies and assassins? They scrutinize every face, every gesture, looking for any anomaly, any sign that this operation is more than it seems. And then, amidst the haze, often in a moment of hushed observation, they find it. Not necessarily a grand, dramatic reveal with a sudden confrontation, but a subtle, chilling discovery that slowly dawns upon them. Perhaps they observe a coded message passed between two seemingly innocuous figures who appear to be simple patrons, but whose eyes hold it to alert intelligence. Or the sudden, cold, assessing gaze of an unfamiliar face that seems to pierce through their disguise, making Smith's blood run cold. Or perhaps, most disturbingly, they witness a transaction, a whisper, a silent signal, or the presence of a particularly well-dressed, authoritative figure who seems out of place, that unmistakably links this den of vice to the larger network of Fu Manchu. It's the shocking realization that this place, this house of opium, is not merely a den for addicts, it's a crucial, strategically vital node in Fu Manchu's vast criminal enterprise. It serves as a collection point for tribute or intelligence. Chapter 11, The Knockout Drops. Alright, welcome back, my fellow adventurers, to our journey through the shadowy, labyrinthine world of Dr. Fu Manchu. If you've been with us since the beginning, you know we've seen our intrepid, albeit often misguided, hero, Sir Dennis Nayland Smith, dance dangerously close to the precipice more times than I can count. He's been lucky, he's been incredibly resourceful, he's even managed to outsmart the dacoits and the nefarious sci-fi on numerous occasions. But let's be honest with ourselves, and with Smith, there's been an underlying current of, well, a certain undeniable British confidence, hasn't there? A deep-seated belief, perhaps even a presumption, that ultimately, Western ingenuity, courage, and sheer pluck would inevitably prevail against the mysterious forces of the East. And that, my friends, is precisely what makes Chapter 11, The Knockout Drops, such a pivotal and frankly, terrifying turning point. Because in this chapter, that very confidence, that almost blind underlying arrogance, doesn't just put Smith in danger, it almost costs him everything. This isn't merely a close call, this is a stark, brutal, and profoundly humiliating lesson in humility, delivered with chilling precision, courtesy of the most insidious mind in all of literature. It's the moment Smith truly understands the depth of the abyss he's staring into. Smith, much like many of us when we're riding a wave of success, had begun to believe a little too much in his own invulnerability. He'd successfully thwarted several of Fu Manchu's initial schemes, he'd deciphered baffling clues, he'd even survived direct, often outlandish, assassination attempts. He was good, exceptionally good, no doubt about it. But he was far from infallible. And Fu Manchu thrives on fallibility, or rather, on meticulously exploiting the human tendency to believe in one's own infallibility. The setup, as always with Fu Manchu, is exquisitely cruel and perfectly orchestrated. Smith, convinced he has finally gained a significant advantage, attempts to infiltrate a location he's certain is a clandestine lair of the sci-fi, a hub of Fu Manchu's malevolent operations. He proceeds with what he believes is utmost caution, yes, but there's an almost palpable bravado in his movements, a sense that he's closing in, perhaps even ready to deliver a decisive, game-changing blow against the devil himself. He's meticulously planned his approach, accounting for obvious guards, for tripwires, for physical traps he can see and circumvent. What he fatally fails to account for is the unseen, the utterly unexpected, the truly diabolical and subtle trap that operates entirely beyond the realm of conventional warfare or detection. And that, precisely, is where the knockout drops make their terrifying entrance. This isn't a struggle, it's not a dramatic confrontation where Smith can employ his strength, his martial prowess, or even his renowned deductive wits. It's an elegant, almost silent, and utterly complete incapacitation. He's taken absolutely by surprise, struck down not by a crude fist or a gleaming blade, but by something far more subtle, more pervasive, and therefore, far more terrifying. One moment, he's fully alert, every sense attuned, ready for anything. The next, a profound, alien lethargy, a heavy, irresistible drowsiness, washes over him, rendering him utterly, completely helpless. It's a swift, brutal reminder that no matter how brilliant or prepared you believe yourself to be, there's always someone out there who has anticipated your every move and thought of something you haven't, something beyond your current comprehension. The details of this collapse are chillingly rendered. The almost imperceptible, sickly sweet scent in the air, the sudden, inexplicable weakness spreading through his limbs, the blurring vision, the rapid, unstoppable descent into unconsciousness. It's not a heroic fall, there's no dramatic last stand. It's a humiliating, terrifying loss of all agency and control. He doesn't even get a chance to fight back, to make a defiant statement. Chapter 12, The Fiery End. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're nearing the end of our deep dive into Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. And let me tell you, if you thought things were intense before, you haven't seen anything yet. We've been through hidden passages, ancient poisons, terrifying dacoits, and the sheer intellectual terror of the Doctor himself. We've watched Nayland Smith and Dr. Petrie navigate a labyrinth of danger, always seemingly one step behind, always just barely escaping with their lives and their sanity. But now we arrive at what is, ostensibly, the climax. The grand, fiery, explosive conclusion to this first installment. We're talking about Chapter 12, The Fiery End. And believe me, the title isn't just for dramatic effect. Romer delivers on that promise with a bang, or rather, with several bangs, and a whole lot of smoke. Pause, slightly leaning forward, voice lowering conspiratorially. Picture this: Smith and Petrie, our weary but determined heroes, are right in the thick of it. The cottage, which has served as a temporary sanctuary, a place of tense strategy, a site of ambush and near-death experiences, is now their ultimate trap. Fu Manchu, ever the master of manipulation and foresight, has ensured that every escape route is either blocked or rigged. The air is thick with tension, not just from the immediate threat of the Doctor's henchmen, but from an almost palpable sense of dread that permeates the very foundations of the building. And then, it happens. The spark, the ignition. It's not a slow, creeping flame. This is Fu Manchu, remember. This is a man who deals in efficiency and spectacle. The cottage doesn't just catch fire, it erupts. Whether it's from overturned oil lamps, strategically placed accelerants, or a cleverly timed detonation, the narrative doesn't dwell on the precise mechanics, because the effect is what matters. Suddenly, our heroes are not just fighting dacoits or evading insidious traps, they are literally fighting against time, against the ravenous appetite of the flames. Imagine the heat, a stifling, suffocating blanket that presses in from all sides. The smoke, thick and acrid, burning the eyes and lungs, reducing visibility to mere inches. The crackle and roar of timber igniting, the hungry lick of fire devouring everything in its path. Every creak of the burning floorboards, every groan of the charring ceiling beams, echoes the frantic beat of their own hearts. It's chaos, pure and unadulterated. Smith, ever the man of action, barks orders, his face grim, sweat mingling with soot. Petrie, perhaps a little more prone to observation even in the direst circumstances, might notice the structural collapses, the way the inferno consumes the intricate craftsmanship of the cottage, turning it into a collapsing tomb. They're scrambling, desperately searching for an exit, any crack in the inferno that offers a breath of clean air, a path to safety. The threat of the dacoits and Kareem, who were so formidable moments ago, is now secondary to the overwhelming, primal force of the fire. Are they caught in it too? Do they manage to escape? The narrative becomes a blur of frantic survival, where friend and foe alike are pitted against the indifferent wrath of the flames. It's a terrifying, visceral experience for the reader, leaving us breathless, our own throats feeling a phantom dryness. Slight pause, adjusting posture, a thoughtful expression, and then, just as it seems all hope is lost, they make it out. They breach the inferno, perhaps through a collapsing wall or a desperate leap, tumbling into the relative safety of the night air, gasping, coughing, their clothes singed, their faces streaked with grime. They look back, and what they see is not just a burning cottage, but a roaring pyre. A monument to destruction, a funeral pyre for everything that was contained within. And it's in that moment, as the flames lick towards the heavens and the smoke billows into the night, that the question inevitably arises, where is Fu Manchu? Voice becomes more introspective, the Bo. 7-day action plan, the detective mindset. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you've been following our deep dive into the truly chilling world of Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, you'll know we've spent a lot of time dissecting the intricate plots, the looming threat of the sci-fi, and the sheer diabolical genius of the Doctor himself. But beyond the thrilling escapism, what if I told you there's a secret weapon hidden within these pages? A tool you can extract and wield in your own modern life? I'm talking, of course, about the razor-sharp, hyper-alert mindset of Sir Dennis Nayland Smith. He's not just a character, he's an archetype of preparedness, a master of observation, and a beacon of resilience in the face of unimaginable danger. In our chaotic, information-saturated world, where real dangers might not wear silken robes or employ Burmese assassins, but are insidious in their own ways, think digital threats, subtle social manipulations, or simply overlooked opportunities, cultivating this detective mindset is more valuable than ever. So, forget the dusty old detective stories for a moment, and let's talk about application. Today, we're not just reading about Nayland Smith, we're going to become a little more like him. I've put together a 7-day action plan designed to help you apply Nayland Smith's hyper-awareness to your modern life, transforming you from a passive observer into an active, discerning participant. This isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about becoming profoundly aware. It's about being present, discerning, and calmly prepared. Are you ready to unlock your inner detective? Let's dive in. Day 1 to 2, audit your environment for security and overlooked details. Alright, let's kick this off. When Nayland Smith arrives anywhere, a new flat in London, a remote outpost in the east, what's the very first thing he does? He doesn't just see the room, he scans it. He's looking for exits, for potential hiding places, for anything that's out of place, anything that could be a threat or a clue. He's building a mental map of vulnerabilities and assets. This is our starting point. For the first 2 days, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to audit your environment for security and overlooked details. Think of yourself as a security consultant for your own life, or even a professional burglar, trying to find the weak points. Here's how you'll do it. Start with your home base, physical security. Walk around your home, inside and out. How secure are your doors and windows? Are the locks robust? Are there any bushes that could provide cover for someone? Any dark corners or blind spots? Imagine you're trying to break in. Where would you go? This isn't to scare you, it's to empower you to fortify those points. Escape routes and safety. In case of fire or emergency, do you have a clear, rehearsed escape plan? Do you know where your fire extinguisher is, or your first aid kit? When was the last time you checked your smoke detectors? I'm guilty of letting the batteries run low sometimes, but Nayland Smith wouldn't. The normal that isn't. What sounds do you usually ignore? The creak in the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant siren. Now, try to listen to them. Can you distinguish these normal sounds from something genuinely unusual? What about smells? Is there a faint gas smell you've grown accustomed to? An odd electrical scent? Your nose is a powerful detection tool. Hidden details. Take a specific room, say, your living room. Now, look at it as if you've never seen it before. What's truly on display? What's hidden? Are there any items left out that reveal too much personal information? Any papers easily accessible? What small details have you simply stopped seeing? A chip in the paint, a loose floorboard, a dust bunny that's been there for weeks, silently judging you. These are the small clues to the larger story of your environment. Expand to your digital domain. Nayland Smith dealt with poison darts, we deal with phishing emails. Go through your digital life with the same scrutiny. How strong are your? Summary, 3 key takeaways. Alright, my friends, we've journeyed through the labyrinthine alleys of early 20th century London, peered into secret societies, and perhaps, like me, you've found yourself a little wide-eyed at the sheer audacity and inventive, if at times deeply unsettling, world Sax Rohmer crafted. As we bring our expedition into the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu to a close, it's time to distill what really sticks with you after the final page is turned. Beyond the thrills and chills, what's the true literary and thematic essence of this book? For me, 3 major takeaways truly define it: its foundational literary legacy, its unique narrative engineering, and its undeniably complex, often problematic, historical backdrop. These aren't just bullet points, they're the foundational pillars upon which this fascinating, sometimes uncomfortable, but undeniably influential novel stands, inviting us to look closer, think deeper, and perhaps even question our own assumptions. 1. The archetype. How Fu Manchu defined the supervillain trope for the century. First up, and perhaps the most undeniable, even revolutionary, legacy of this book, is the creation of the archetype. Dr. Fu Manchu isn't just a villain, he is, without exaggeration, the fundamental blueprint for the supervillain as we have come to understand and love, or love to hate, them for over a century. Think about it. Before Fu Manchu burst onto the scene in 1913, villains in popular fiction were often more grounded. They were typically driven by relatable, albeit evil, human desires: revenge, greed, jealousy, or a simple lust for power within a recognizable social structure. They were often the dark mirror of the hero, but still very much of the same world. But Fu Manchu, he elevates villainy to an entirely new, almost mythological stratosphere. He's a character of such staggering, multifaceted genius that he transcends ordinary criminal masterminds. He's a polymath, a certified genius described as having a mind that has no parallel in both ancient and modern sciences. This isn't just hyperbole. Romer shows us his mastery of chemistry, biology, obscure poisons, psychology, engineering, and even ancient mysticism. He doesn't just use technology, he seems to invent and perfect it in secret. He commands an army, not just a gang, but a vast, diverse, and fanatically loyal organization of henchmen, silent thugs, swift dacoits, cunning assassins from every shadowy corner of the globe, all bending to his inscrutable will. He operates from hidden layers, deep beneath London's streets or in exotic, unassuming buildings, seemingly able to appear and disappear at will, always a step ahead of his pursuers, like a ghost cloaked in silk. His methods are not merely criminal, they are diabolical, often involving exotic botanical poisons that leave no trace, bizarre forms of psychological torture, and elaborate traps that stretch the imagination to its breaking point. He's not just robbing a bank or settling a vendetta, his ambition is nothing short of global domination, or at the very least, a significant, destabilizing disruption of Western power structures, aiming to reshape the world to his own, often obscure, design. Sound familiar? It absolutely should. Every truly iconic supervillain who came after him, from the earliest pulp antagonists to the grand cinematic arch-nemeses of today, owes a profound debt, consciously or not, to Fu Manchu. Consider James Bond's Blofeld, with his secret volcano lair, his distinctive cat, and his grand schemes for world domination. Or Batman's Joker, a figure of twisted genius, theatrical mayhem, and an almost philosophical commitment to chaos. Even many of the shadowy puppet masters in our modern espionage thrillers or the technologically advanced antagonists in superhero sagas, they all carry a piece of Fu Manchu's DNA. He set the standard for the larger-than-life antagonist, brilliant beyond compare, equipped with seemingly limitless resources. How does he fund all this? A master of disguise and deception, driven by an almost cosmic ambition, and utterly unconcerned with conventional human morality. He doesn't just want to win a battle, he wants to remake the world in his own image, or at least challenge its very foundations with an almost supernatural intelligence. This vision of a villain, a single individual capable of threatening entire nations and civilizations, was utterly revolutionary at the time, and it cemented Fu Manchu's place as a foundational, albeit often controversial, figure in popular culture's pantheon of evil. He truly changed the game for how we conceive of villainy. To the dynamic, the importance of the grounded narrator, Petrie, versus the genius agent, Smith. Moving on to our second crucial key takeaway, let's dive into the dynamic, specifically, the brilliant narrative structure that underpins the entire thrilling adventure. You see, while Fu Manchu is undeniably the captivating, terrifying star of the show, the way we experience him, the lens through which his insidious brilliance is filtered, is absolutely crucial to the book's enduring power. We don't get his internal monologue, we get his terrifying presence, his cunning plots, and his near-magical escapes filtered almost exclusively through the eyes and mind of Dr. Petrie. Dr. Petrie isn't a brilliant detective like Sherlock Holmes, nor is he a daring, swashbuckling adventurer like some of the other pulp heroes of the era. He's a medical doctor, a man of science and reason, grounded in the realities of early 20th century London. He's living a relatively ordinary, comfortable life until he's unceremoniously, almost unwillingly, swept into this vortex of international intrigue and unimaginable danger. And that, my friends, is his genius from a narrative perspective. He is our proxy, our stand-in, the relatable human element in a world rapidly spiraling into the fantastic. His fear is our fear, his confusion our confusion. When he describes Fu Manchu's luminous green eyes, or the insidious chill that radiates from his presence, or the sheer terror of finding himself trapped in a bizarre, almost unbelievable scenario, we feel it because Petrie feels it so acutely, and he translates those raw emotions directly to us. This grounded perspective makes the truly fantastical elements, the exotic, undetectable poisons, the elaborate, impossible traps, the seemingly supernatural escapes of Fu Manchu, feel more real, more immediate, and infinitely more terrifying. If the narrator were as brilliant and unflappable as Nayland Smith, or as detached as an omniscient third-person voice, we might lose some of that visceral dread and personal connection to the unfolding chaos. Petrie provides the human scale, the emotional tether to the extraordinary. And this is where the dynamic truly shines. Petrie, the rational but emotionally susceptible observer and reluctant participant, perfectly contrasts with Sir Dennis Nayland Smith, the genius agent. Smith is the one with the razor-sharp intellect, the daring, the relentless pursuit. He's very much the Holmes figure in this pairing, constantly piecing together obscure clues, making lightning-fast deductions, and facing down danger with an almost superhuman resolve. But significantly, we rarely experience the events directly through his eyes or get direct access to his thought processes. Smith's brilliance is often presented as a fait accompli, a sudden realization, a decisive action, a plan already laid out, that Petrie, and thus us, the readers, only grasps after the fact, adding to Smith's mystique and further emphasizing Petrie's role as the witness rather than the solver. This constant interplay between Petrie's human vulnerability, his scientific skepticism clashing with the unbelievable, and Smith's intellectual prowess, his unwavering determination, creates a narrative tension that keeps us utterly hooked. Petrie's perspective grounds the incredible events, making them relatable and adding a sense of urgent peril, while Smith's actions drive the plot forward with a relentless, intellectual energy. It's a masterclass in how to use point of view to amplify suspense, to immerse the reader, and to make even the most outlandish situations feel urgent and deeply personal. It truly shows the immense power of having a witness to the extraordinary, rather than merely an active participant who understands everything. This dynamic not only works within the story but set a precedent for countless future detective and adventure duos, where the observant, slightly less brilliant companion brings the genius's exploits into relatable human terms. 3. The context. Understanding the book as a product of 1913 fears and prejudices. Finally, we arrive at what is perhaps the most crucial, and certainly the most complex and uncomfortable, takeaway from the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu: the context. It is, frankly, impossible to truly understand, let alone critically appreciate, this book without acknowledging it as a profound product of its time, specifically, the deep-seated anxieties and pervasive prejudices prevalent in the Western world around 1913, just on the cusp of the First World War. At the turn of the 20th century, the concept of the Yellow Peril was not merely a niche idea, it was a very real, very potent, and widely disseminated fear in the Western world, particularly in Britain and America. This was an alarmist, xenophobic, and deeply racist sentiment, fueled by a complex cocktail of imperialistic anxieties, economic fears, and cultural misunderstandings. It depicted East Asian peoples, particularly Chinese and Japanese, as an existential, monolithic threat to Western civilization, embodying a perceived spiritual, moral, and technological degeneracy that simultaneously harbored a cunning drive for global domination. This fear wasn't just abstract rhetoric, it manifested in everything from harsh anti-immigration policies, like the Chinese Exclusion Act in the US, to sensationalist journalism, popular political cartoons, and, of course, the kind of thrilling, escapist fiction Romer was writing. Fu Manchu, with his subtle brain, his evil genius, his long, lean, yellow face and eyes of a peculiar brilliance, and his secret society of Oriental assassins, became the ultimate, iconic personification of this yellow peril. He embodies every Western fear about the other, brilliant beyond measure, yet inscrutable, ancient and mysterious, yet technologically formidable, utterly treacherous, yet endlessly patient. He is depicted as possessing an alien intelligence, a chilling lack of Western empathy, and a singular drive to undermine and conquer, not through brute force, but through insidious, unseen machinations. Romer paints him as a symbol of an ancient, seemingly unchanging East, plotting against a technologically superior but morally vulnerable West. The book plays directly into these deep-seated fears of invasion, cultural degradation, a reversal of global power dynamics, and a perceived threat to racial purity, all projected onto a terrifying, often dehumanized figure. Now, and this is absolutely vital to state clearly, understanding the historical context does not, and cannot, excuse the racist stereotypes, xenophobia, and overt Orientalism embedded within the narrative. We cannot look at this book through modern eyes and simply dismiss its harmful content by saying, "Oh, that's just how it was back then." The book is deeply problematic, and its widespread influence unfortunately contributed to, and reinforced, harmful stereotypes that persisted for decades, echoing into film, television, and even political discourse. It's important to confront this head-on. However, by acknowledging this context, by understanding the cultural soil from which the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu sprang, we gain a deeper, albeit often uncomfortable, understanding of why the book resonated so powerfully with its initial audience. It tapped into their collective anxieties, confirmed their worst fears about a changing world, and provided a thrilling, albeit skewed, narrative for the perceived threats to their established order. For us, reading it today, it serves as a powerful, and undeniably stark, historical artifact. It's a mirror reflecting not just the literary innovations of its time, but also its ugliest societal prejudices and fears. It compels us to read critically, to question the narratives we consume, and to recognize how literature, even when designed purely for entertainment, can both reflect and, sometimes, actively perpetuate harmful ideas. It's a stark reminder that even stories that define archetypes and revolutionize genres can carry with them the burdensome conclusion and CTA. And so, we close the cover, at least for now, on the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu. What a journey, wasn't it? As I sit here, the echo of Dr. Petrie's breathless narration still ringing in my ears, and the image of Nayland Smith, ever so steadfast, still sharp in my mind's eye, I can't help but feel a certain satisfaction. A satisfaction born not just from solving the puzzle of a particular story, but from the broader experience of stepping back into a world that is, in so many ways, both familiar and utterly alien to our own. This isn't just about the cunning traps, the exotic poisons, or the relentless pursuit across foggy London streets and hidden lairs. It's about the very air of 1913, the palpable sense of a world teetering on the edge of unimaginable change, yet still clinging to certain sureties, certain fears. Sax Rohmer wasn't just crafting a thriller, he was inadvertently capturing a snapshot of an era's anxieties, its fascination with the unknown, and yes, its less flattering prejudices. Fu Manchu himself, a character so steeped in the problematic tropes of yellow peril, yet undeniably compelling in his sheer, unadulterated villainy, remains a figure worth examining. Not to celebrate those outdated fears, but to understand them, to see how they shaped the stories we told ourselves, and, critically, how far we've come, or perhaps, how far we still need to go in our understanding of human complexity. He's a product of his time, a dark reflection of societal anxieties, and in that sense, a powerful historical document wrapped in a pulp fiction package. Think about him for a moment, Fu Manchu. He's not driven by a simple desire for wealth, nor is he merely a madman seeking chaos. His motives are grander, almost philosophical in their scope: the overturning of Western dominance, the reassertion of an ancient, enigmatic Eastern power. He commands incredible resources, not just brute force, but scientific genius, a vast network of devoted followers, and a mind that seems to operate several steps ahead of even the most astute British detective. He embodies the intellectual threat, the idea that the other could be not just physically dangerous, but intellectually superior, patiently weaving webs of conspiracy. There's a certain chilling efficiency to his evil, a calm, almost detached malevolence that makes him far more frightening than a ranting psychopath. His insidious nature isn't just about stealth, it's about the slow, deliberate undermining of established order, a quiet, and patient malice. He manipulates, he experiments, he calculates. He doesn't just want to destroy, he wants to reshape, to dominate. And that, for 1913, was a particularly potent, fear-inducing brew. Now, having spent this time with Fu Manchu, with his ancient wisdom and modern scientific mastery, with his unwavering dedication to a cause that is both terrifying and, in a twisted way, almost noble from his own perspective, it begs a fascinating question. We've seen a villain forged in the crucible of early 20th century anxieties, a figure who represents the exoticized other and a threat to Western hegemony. But the world has moved on dramatically since 1913. Society has changed, our understanding of psychology has deepened, and our literary and cinematic landscapes have transformed beyond recognition. So, here's my challenge to you, my fellow explorers of literary shadows: how do you think villains have evolved since 1913? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts on this. When you compare a figure like Fu Manchu, with his almost mythical cunning and his culturally specific brand of evil, to the antagonists we see in our stories today, the anti-heroes, the psychologically complex figures, the villains who make us question our own moral compass, or even the ones who are simply products of broken systems, what strikes you most? Is it a shift from external, almost fantastical threats to internal, psychological ones? Do we demand more nuanced motivations now? Are we more interested in understanding why someone does evil, rather than simply accepting THA? Thank you for listening to this audiobook. If you found value, meaning, or inspiration in this journey, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter. Your support helps us bring more timeless classics to life. See you in the next reading.